So in the fourth quarter, Duke started off with Monk back at center against Notre Dame after not liking what they saw in the third quarter, and starts off with nice blocks from everybody and just a solid inside zone run. Monk has his eyes up, has this initial assignment, lets him go by, passes him off, and then handles this edge out here. And the rest of the offensive line just covering their assignments, creating space. The running back is able to make a read, get some yards. Hello, good people. Packers fans, football fans, and random internet viewers who are at least a little bit curious about how football is played at the pro and college level. I'm Tim Noonan. I've been a fan of the Packers for the last 20 years and a fan of scouting college players for the last 8 years. And today I'm doing a video breakdown of the Packers' fifth-round pick, guard/center Jacob Monk out of the University of Duke. If you like the video, make sure to take a second to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell so that you get a notification the next time I'm on here talking about football at the pro or college level. Without further ado, let's get into what to expect from this breakdown of Jacob Monk. The first thing that I want to look at with Monk is his physicality. He has an above-average wingspan, but not necessarily the longest arms. So he's just got a very wide body, and he's got a thick torso, a thick trunk. And he uses that to his advantage, and so we'll get into some of those plays and see how he uses his physical gift there. The second part of his game that we'll look at are just his eyes and reactions in pass blocking and in blocking in general. He does a good job to keep his eyes up, and he reacts well to what defenders are doing, whether they're throwing stunts at him or whether he just has to help out on 2 assignments. The third area of his game that I'll look at is his limitations with power and with moving in space. Like I said, he has a thick trunk, a thick torso, and he uses that well to get leverage and enforce some power on defenders. But it's not where he wins. Power is not necessarily where he wins all the time. He has some limited strength and some limited movement in space that lands him on the ground sometimes. So we'll look at some of those plays, highlight some of those limitations of his strength and athleticism. Finally, I will just discuss where I see him fitting with the Packers. I think he is a developmental prospect as a center, and I'm not 100% sure if he makes the 53-man roster this fall. There's really 13 to 15 possible candidates for that 53-man roster. 6 to 8 of them are pretty locked in, and last year the Packers came into the year with 11 men on the offensive line on the final roster. So I think there's a spot for him maybe, but he really has to win. He really has to compete against the other guys because there is a lot of competition for those last 3, maybe 4 spots. With that, we will get into the first part of his game, which is just his wide body and the strength and power he has with his upper body. So this is against Georgia Tech in 2022. He's at right guard here, and he just takes on a bull rush well. What you see is he stifles his man. His man doesn't gain much ground on him. He's patient with the hands, lands his hands well on the outside to prevent any movement from this defensive lineman's arms. Just locks him up. Nice rep. Against Notre Dame in 2023, we see him here at center against a very, very impressive interior lineman, Howard Cross III, who I think will make some noise over the next year or two, depending on when he really breaks out and when teams start paying close attention to him. So Cross is lined up over the center position where Monk is, and Monk just handles him well. As you'll see with some later clips, Cross is a very powerful defender, and he ends up getting into a partial sack here. But I think on this rep, Monk has done all he can do. The quarterback holds on to the ball for about a tick too long, and then Monk's teammate ends up sort of driving into him a little bit and knocks him off. You kind of see the strength limitations with Monk here already. Being knocked off that block by his teammate. But overall, I think this is a good rep. This is something that you can use on the offensive line. I think he wins this well. He stays in front of him, and then play just goes too long. Against Clemson in 2023, He has this nice rep where he does a great job of staying in front of the defender, and he passes the camera butt test. The camera butt test is something that I picked up from football writer Justice Mosqueda. Great Twitter follow. Throw him a follow. Read all of his stuff if you can. He's very informative. But what the camera butt test is if you imagine that there is a camera, like a GoPro, right on Jacob Monk's tailbone. You want that camera to stay focused on the quarterback. So when I'm watching offensive linemen, if I'm unsure how the rep is going, or is he winning, is he losing? It looks like his hands are getting beat, his feet, whatever. There's a lot that goes into winning a given rep for offensive line, and so it can be clarifying just to have that simple camera butt test. So on this play, he does kind of he's got some hand fighting with this guy. And this defender does try to get some separation. It doesn't necessarily work. But the whole time, if there's a camera on Monk's butt, the quarterback is in frame almost the entire time. And I think that makes this a simple, good rep. All you're trying to do on the offensive line is stay between the defender and your quarterback, and Monk does that here. Going back to this Notre Dame game, we're going to watch a lot of clips because Notre Dame has two big interior linemen, Howard Cross III and then number 99, Riley Mills, who I think proved to be good tests for Monk. He wins some, he loses some. On this rep, he definitely wins. So Cross tries to just get into his body from being over the guard, and Monk reacts well, holds on to him, doesn't give up any ground really, and opens up plenty of space. Riley Leonard, the quarterback, has plenty of time to make this dot throw out here to get Duke a lead in the fourth quarter. Seeing from this second angle, you just see he plays this out with nice balance. He catches Cross well, finishes this block, stays in front of him, passes the camera butt test there as well. While a lot of his strength is in sort of getting in position and wedging guys out and out-leveraging them, he does have some power to put guys on the ground. He showed that here and there. It wasn't a calling card for him, but it is just nice, like on this play, to see him finish a block and end up with a guy on the ground. Just really, really nice aggression. For the questions that I have about Monk, I never questioned effort or anything like that. I think he is always fighting his butt off to win every rep. So just really, really like to see this rep. This was encouraging to see. The second aspect of Monk's game that I'm going to be looking at is his ability to react and keep his eyes up in different phases of the game. I think it's important for offensive linemen to be aware of what's going on around them, especially on the interior line, where sometimes you have to help out with the center, sometimes you have to help out with the guard, or if he ends up at the center spot, you may have to help out with either guard. You also have to be aware of the entire defensive front so that you can communicate things to people. Like I said, I think he is a developmental center prospect. So looking at his eyes here on this play, what we're going to see is a simple double team, but he keeps his eyes up just in case there's a linebacker that comes into his area. So, right, finishes this double team with the tackle. Watching it in half speed, right, you see he takes on this blocker, but his eyes are not on his blocker. He's kind of cued into where this linebacker is, where the safety is rolling down, so that if he has to climb, he can do that. And instead, the tackle ends up breaking off here, and our guy Monk just finishes this block. On a pass rep block here against Notre Dame, what we see is him responding to a twist or a stunt, and he does a great job responding to twists and stunts. Handles two defenders well consistently. So this is just an example of that, right? So he takes on this interior lineman, then handles the edge defender, Howard Cross, when Cross slips inside. Even though this initial interior man disengages and gets around, you can't really stop that. You don't want to follow him as he's getting depth back towards the line of scrimmage. I think this loss is more on the tackle. The tackle has to come off of the Howard Cross block and help out on this defender who's making a move towards the edge, because Monk looks like he has Cross pretty well locked up here. Against Georgia Tech in 2022, he was playing center on this play. He started off at center against Georgia Tech and then moved to guard. But what we see here is an over front, so basically an over is just for Jacob Monk's purposes here. This big defensive lineman is in between Monk and the guard, but really is shaded towards Monk's shoulder. So you just expect him to drive towards Monk's shoulder that he's shaded over. And Georgia Tech just throws all the gaps off by one. That lineman ends up going to the outside, and so Monk just has a nice heads-up play to keep his eyes up, not overreact to that first defender, and still just take on this defender who's reaching over into a different gap. So handles it well, doesn't give up any depth or anything, just a nice block. And closing out here, we're looking at Rep against Virginia in 2023. He is playing center on this play, and this edge defender at the bottom of the offensive line just twists all the way inside, and Monk handles him really well. Just catches him, takes him out of the play, even pushes him back a little bit, gets some nice finish there. And what we see here, honestly, I think is just a little hint at what I'll talk about later. He's just more at home at center. He's more aggressive. He finishes better on blocks. He executes much better on blocks at center than he does at guard. So I'm excited to look at more of these center plays later on. But this is just a really great pass rep. Keeps his eyes up, catches that defender twisting back inside, takes him out of the play. So the third area of his game that I'm going to look at are just his physical limitations. He's not necessarily the strongest player or the fastest or quickest player. He wins between the ears with what he reads and how he reacts to defenders. But getting out in space, while he can do it, and we'll see some examples of that, it's not his forte. So on this first play versus Boston College, we see him try to get out here and just get this second level block on a linebacker, and he just can't get there. And you want to see this, it doesn't look like this linebacker is moving particularly fast. He's sort of shuffling sideways. I would just like to see, I don't know if this is necessarily angle. I do think it's athleticism on this because he doesn't take a terrible angle to the linebacker. Just want to see him get there, get hands on the linebacker, because this linebacker ends up being a part of this gang tackle at the end. And so you just want to see him finish there and not allow an assisted tackle there. Against Notre Dame in 2023, he has a down block here on Howard Cross. And this is a tough assignment because to pull that far on a down block, just to get there, it does take some quickness, but he is helped by what the defense is doing. Cross moves inside towards the hash mark. So Monk gets there and he does get hands on him, but he just doesn't get there quite quickly enough, and then he doesn't have the power to make up for not having that quick first step. And what ends up happening here is Cross just blows by him inside, gets in here for a tackle for loss, and you just want to see either the speed or the power to get Cross out of this play, because it's a tough assignment, but this is a very doable assignment. And these kinds of plays are the things that make me wonder, is he going to make the 53-man roster? Because while I've spoken highly of Cross, right now Cross is not he's not considered one of the top tier interior defensive linemen. That could change over the course of the year. As the process goes along, we could all find out that Howard Cross is a lot better than we think he is. But right now, I just think you've got to finish that block. He gets there just a tick late and then ends up on the ground, and this is another thing that I don't love to see in an offensive lineman's game, is the amount of times that Monk ends up on the ground. It's just very concerning for me. And I think this might just be who he is, not necessarily that all the reps are going to look like this. I think with time he could develop to just be in better positions, figure out the ways to win with the gifts he has, because that's how he won in college. But just want to see him win more consistently and not give up these kinds of plays. So just, I spoke a lot about physical limitations there, so I just want to highlight he does have the physical capability to go out and be a contributor. On this play, we're just going to see him reach out on an edge defender, seal him off. Offense gets a great first down here in the third quarter when they don't have any points on the board and they end up rallying against Notre Dame here. But huge block, nice, very functional power, gets to his spot quickly to make this block. So all those concerns that I have on that last play and plays like it, because there's a lot more plays like that last play than there are like this. you know that he has this in his bag, and you just want to see it be more consistent. So, like I said on the last play, Duke was out of this game and got back in on that drive. Within a few drives, they were up 14-13. Notre Dame came back down, drove, got back up 21-14. And so now Duke is on an all-out passing offensive here. They have 4 receivers split out wide. And so they have 5 blockers. Duke has 5 blockers. Notre Dame has 5 potential pass rushers here on or near the line. And so one offensive lineman accounted for each potential pass rusher. Everybody has to win against their pass rusher. And Monk is responsible for Howard Cross over the middle here. Now, with each offensive lineman only being able to really be responsible for one assignment, Monk is responsible for Howard Cross here, and Cross just gets past him. Monk's on the ground, strip sack, fumble, that's game. This is the nightmare scenario, and this is something that it really, really concerns me with Monk, is his ability to win one-on-one against good, big athletes, because it's unavoidable in the NFL playing against these bigger guys who are long, strong, and having to beat them one-on-one. There is but so much that, study, preparation, and technical abilities can do against those giant dudes. So how do you win against those guys? I want to reemphasize, this is not who Monk was on every single play. He lost a lot of reps due to power or quickness, but he also showed the ability to take on bull rushes like he does here against Tyler Davis, a 6th round pick from the Los Angeles Rams. So he's going up against an NFL talent here, handles him well, passes the camera butt test. You'd like to see maybe a little bit more sand in the pants to not give up so much ground, because he does get walked back into Riley Leonard's lap. But if he can stay between defensive linemen and the quarterback, I think he will have a spot on the roster. He is not a guy that I think the Packers are expecting to be a starting guard anytime soon or a starting center. But if he can stay in front of defensive linemen, he's got a chance. So, like I said at the top, Jacob Monk, in my opinion, is a center. He is a developmental prospect at center. It's going to take some time. He's going to have a steep learning curve. And he may not even make the initial 53-man roster this year. He may hang around on the practice squad. I don't necessarily think he gets cut because, as we'll see here, this offensive line looks a lot better with him at center than it does with him at guard. And what that tells me is, 1, he's more comfortable at center, and 2, he must have some good checks, some good reads for what the defensive fronts are that everybody else looks more coordinated on offense. So just to get a sense of what this offensive line looks like with him not at center, just looking at early in the game against Notre Dame in 2023, he's over here at guard, and you get a Howard Cross rush into the middle. Goes there virtually uncontested from the center. And this is something that, obviously we just saw with Jacob Monk. So it's not like, you plug him in there and then this gets fixed. This is just something that happened more frequently with Monk at guard than happened at center. Monk just had a lot fewer reps where he was dominated at center like this than number 70 for Duke did last year. So against Clemson in 2023, we see this center sort of get dominated, and then this spills over into Monk's territory, where Monk then ends up on the ground, not necessarily because of any leverage or strength issues, but because Clemson's Ruke Orhorhoro ends up just fully into Jacob Monk's lap. The center couldn't quite handle Orhorhoro, and it then becomes Monk's problem. The guard tries to help, and ultimately, Duke ends up with a nice gain because Riley Leonard makes a play, the quarterback here. But just not very clean play from the center here, and the offense makes chicken salad. But you don't want your offensive skill players having to make chicken salad because of sloppy offensive line play. Now, later on in the Notre Dame game in the second quarter. This is the first play that Monk is in at center, and the offensive line, in my opinion, just looks a lot better. Now, they're not dominating physically. They're not pushing guys off the line. That's not the effect that a good center has on an offensive line. The effect that a good center has is every offensive lineman is engaged with an assignment, creating space, and the offense is able to make a good play here. So they just account for their assignments a little bit more smoothly. Howard Cross still ends up getting free, but he is free behind the line of scrimmage. He has to get pretty far back there to get free. And Riley Leonard makes a nice run play again here. Duke sent him back and forth between center and guard. So this is his first play back at guard later in the third quarter after he played the whole second quarter almost at center. And he gets dominated. The offensive line gets dominated. It's a mess. Guys just look a little bit out of sorts, and it almost results in a tackle for loss. So, in my opinion, this offensive line just looks better with Monk at center. So we'll get back to some more of those reps. So in the fourth quarter, Duke started off with Monk back at center against Notre Dame after not liking what they saw in the third quarter, and starts off with nice blocks from everybody and just a solid inside zone run. Monk has his eyes up, has this initial assignment, lets him go by, passes him off, and then handles this edge out here. And the rest of the offensive line just covering their assignments, creating space. The running back is able to make a read, get some yards. Now, in the fourth quarter, about 7 minutes left in this Notre Dame game, Duke has just gained the lead. They have to run time off the clock. They have to hold on to this lead. And as at center, he has a nice double team here. He and his teammate move Howard Cross down the field. He finishes that block, and Duke gets a nice first down on a 2nd and 7 run. You're not even necessarily thinking you're going to get a first down here, but everybody executes well across the board, and the offense is able to keep this drive moving along. We get a secondary angle here, right? He's able to finish Cross. Running back is able to get upfield. Nice play. And closing it out here, he even looks better in the pass rush at center. He just looks more at home in the middle of the field here. So takes on this man well. Low leverage, stays in front of him. Defender tries to fight with his hands. It just doesn't quite work. Monk is able to take him out of this play. Kind of a risky pass by the quarterback there, but it's a good pass rush rep by Monk, and he does just look more comfortable at center, and the offense as a whole looks better with him at center. So, like I said, I think he is a developmental prospect. I'm not 100% sure if he makes the 53-man roster or not. We'll see. I think there are probably about 13 to 15 offensive linemen who the Packers are going to be sorting through as to who makes that final roster. Last year, they brought 11 offensive linemen onto the roster, and I think a little over half those guys are returning this year. So most of those spots are locked down. So there's probably about 8 guys fighting for 4 to 5 spots. So he's going to be battling against other rookies like Donovan Jennings, like Travis Glover. So there's going to be some competition there amongst the younger guys. One thing that helps his chances to make the roster is how adept he was at playing center. The Packers don't have a strong answer at backup center right now. I think the best answer is Elton Jenkins, but we don't really want to move him away from guard. So I think that is Monk's best chance to make the roster, is to prove that he is a stout and capable backup center who has the ability to learn, develop, and grow as a player. Josh Myers seems to have that center spot locked down. I don't think Monk is going to threaten that job, but I think he can prove himself to be a solid backup, and he can slide into the roster there just because the Packers don't have a super solid answer at backup center. But outside of that, if they're just looking to put the best 11 guys on the field, it's going to be a tall task for him to make that roster. I'm pulling for him because I do like how wide he is, the physical gift he brings with just his width and his size, and I also just loved seeing him read and react to double teams and clearly being an asset to the Duke offensive line. I think over the years, if he can hang around, then he could be that for the Packers as well. But the concerns about physical limitations and how sometimes he was just flat out dominated by superior athletes was definitely concerning, and I just wanted to see more from him across the board. But that's why he's a 5th round pick. He is there to try to make it and do the best that he can. Just also to put in perspective sort of where I see him in comparison to other offensive linemen, because I think offensive line is kind of grading offensive line is sort of obscure from the outside. I have a list here of just some other offensive linemen from this year's NFL draft, like Olu Fashanu, who ended up getting drafted by the Jets, Troy Fautanu, Joe Alt. This is how I graded some of those guys, and this also is the grading criteria that I have. So you can see that with the grading criteria, those more top-tier draft picks are guys who clearly outplayed their peers in college and who are approaching the level where I think they could outplay even the NFL's greatest competition. Now, they're not quite there yet. There's a big jump between 7.9 and 8. But there's a lot of guys in this draft that were very clearly dominant players who I think are going to be pros for a long time. Talise Fuaga in that mix as well. Then you have Jordan Morgan, who consistently outplayed his peers in college. He has the rare gift of his physicality, his combination of athleticism and power. And then you have a guy like Jacob Monk, who is developmental, who shows some flashes here and there, and is approaching the place where I would call him situationally successful, where I would call him maybe a specialist. The specialist being, what's between his ears and how he leverages his body to win. So just kind of putting numbers to what I've been saying a little bit to give a clearer idea of this is sort of where I think he falls in relation to other offensive linemen in this draft class. So if you like the video, again, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and then hit the little bell so that you get a notification the next time I'm on here talking about football at the pro or college level. As always, thank you for your time. I appreciate you taking the time. If you have any feedback or any thoughts or any reactions, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. It's fun reacting to comments. And yeah, I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope the week gets off to a good start. Peace.